Henry Quinn considered himself a man of routine. His evenings were a symphony of predictability, a lukewarm cup of instant coffee, an old sci-fi flick humming on his outdated television, and a sarcastic commentary provided by none other than himself. He lived alone in a small, cluttered house on the edge of a quiet town, his only companions being the oddball characters from his favourite movies and the occasional stray cat that meandered onto his porch. On this particular night, the winter wind howled outside, rattling the windows and layering the world in a cold, misty haze. Henry had just settled into his threadbare recliner, balancing a plate of questionable leftovers, when an unexpected knock echoed through the house. "Probably just the wind," he muttered to himself, stuffing a forkful of pasta into his mouth. But the knock came again, more insistent this time. With a heavy sigh, Henry heaved himself up, muttering about persistent salesmen and neighbourhood kids playing pranks as he opened the door. A gust of frigid air swept in, making him shiver. Standing there, illuminated by the dim porch light, was a figure unlike any he had ever seen, draped in a cloak soaked from the rain. Her features were delicate yet striking, ethereal almost. Her skin shimmered faintly, a pale, iridescent hue that seemed to catch the light in a way that defied logic. But it was her eyes, deep and piercing, that held him captive. Before he could utter a word, she spoke. Her voice, soft yet urgent, carried a strange melodic accent. "Help me." Henry blinked, his brain struggling to catch up. "I'm sorry, did you say help me?" he repeated, half expecting her to laugh and reveal the hidden cameras for some prank show. But she didn't. She simply nodded, her expression a mix of exhaustion and desperation. "Well, you've got the wrong house if you're looking for a hero," he quipped, trying to mask his confusion with humour. "I'm more of a call for pizza and hope for the best kind of guy." Her eyes softened, a flicker of something, relief perhaps, crossing her face. "Please," she said again, the single word carrying the weight of 1,000 untold stories. Against his better judgment, Henry stepped aside. "All right, come in. But if you're here to sell me something, I warn you, my budget's tighter than these jeans after Thanksgiving." She stepped inside, her movements graceful yet cautious as she removed her cloak. Henry caught a better glimpse of her. She was undeniably otherworldly, her appearance both beautiful and unsettling. Her clothes, if they could be called that, were made of a material that seemed to shimmer and shift with her every movement, like liquid starlight. "Okay, you're clearly not from around here," Henry said, closing the door and leaning against it. "So, who are you, and what exactly are you doing knocking on my door in the middle of the night?" She hesitated, as if weighing how much to reveal. "My name is Zara," she finally said. "I come from far away and I am in great danger." Henry snorted, unable to help himself. "Yeah, I figured the far away part. You're not exactly blending in at the local diner." His sarcasm was met with a small, weary smile from Zara. "I need your help," she continued. "There are those who seek to capture me, to take something I possess. I cannot allow it to fall into their hands." Henry scratched his head, feeling thoroughly out of his depth. "Lady, I'm just a regular guy. I don't have the slightest clue how to deal with intergalactic kidnappers or whatever it is you're running from." "I don't need a warrior," Zara said, her tone firm yet kind. "I need someone I can trust, and tonight I found you." Henry laughed, a short, incredulous bark. "Lucky me," he said, shaking his head. "All right, Zara, you can stay here for now, but I have a feeling my quiet little life just got a whole lot more complicated." As he guided her to the living room, he couldn't shake the feeling that his world had shifted in that moment. The mundane, predictable existence he had known was gone, replaced by a strange, thrilling uncertainty. And though he didn't know what lay ahead, he couldn't help but feel a spark of excitement. After all, he had always dreamed of an adventure. He just never expected it to knock on his door. The storm outside showed no signs of relenting. The wind howled like a wild beast, and the rain lashed against the windows in relentless waves. Inside, the atmosphere was no less turbulent, albeit in a quieter, more perplexing way. Henry found himself sitting across from Zara at his small kitchen table. The alien woman's presence was transforming his humble abode into the setting of a sci-fi drama he never signed up for. Zara sat with an air of quiet dignity, otherworldly features softened by the dim glow of the kitchen lamp. She had accepted a cup of hot tea, though she regarded it with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Henry, on the other hand, was still trying to process the surreal turn his evening had taken. "So, Zara," he began, his tone attempting to strike a balance between casual and inquisitive. "You said you're from far away. Care to elaborate on that? And by far away, are we talking another country, another planet, or another galaxy?" She answered simply, her eyes meeting his with an earnest intensity. Henry leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his already tousled hair. "Right, another galaxy. Of course. Why not?" He chuckled, a nervous, disbelieving sound. "I suppose you've got a spaceship parked out back too." Zara's lips curved into a faint smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Not anymore," she said softly. "It was destroyed during my escape." "Well, that's inconvenient," Henry muttered, more to himself than to her. He took a sip of his tea, hoping it might ground him in some semblance of reality. "All right, let's start with the basics. What exactly are you running from?" Zara's expression grew sombre. "There is a faction within my people, the Talith, who seek to control an artifact of immense power. It is an ancient relic, one that holds the potential to reshape the fabric of existence. In the wrong hands, it could bring devastation to countless worlds." Henry blinked, his mind reeling from the gravity of her words. "Okay, so you're telling me you've got some kind of galactic doomsday device, and now these Talith folks are after you?" "Yes," Zara confirmed, her tone steady despite the weight of the situation. "And you thought the best place to hide was my little house in the middle of nowhere?" he asked, his sarcasm a thin veil for his growing concern. "It was not a matter of choice," Zara said, her voice tinged with sadness. "I was forced to flee quickly, and this was the nearest habitable location. I had no intention of involving you, but here we are." Henry sighed, leaning forward and resting his elbows on the table. "All right, Zara, let's assume for a moment that I believe all of this. What exactly do you need from me?" She hesitated, her gaze dropping to the table for a moment before meeting his again. "I need time," she said, "time to decipher the artifact's secrets and find a way to protect it from those who seek to abuse its power. I also need someone I can trust, someone who can help me navigate this world while I remain in hiding." Henry rubbed his temples, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. "I'm not exactly the hero type, you know. I'm just a guy with a mortgage and a penchant for bad movies." Zara's expression softened, and for the first time, Henry saw a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. "I don't need a hero," she said quietly. "I need a friend." The sincerity in her voice struck a chord in Henry, and he felt a pang of empathy for this strange alien woman who had somehow found her way to his doorstep. He didn't know what kind of mess he was getting himself into, but one thing was clear: Zara needed his help. "All right," he said finally, his tone resigned but not without a hint of determination. "I'll help you, but let's get one thing straight. I'm not signing up for any intergalactic wars or cosmic showdowns. I'm just here to help you figure out this artifact thing and keep you safe." Zara nodded, a small, grateful smile playing at the corners of her lips. "Thank you, Henry." The storm outside continued to rage, but inside a fragile sense of understanding began to form between them. It was the beginning of an unlikely alliance, one that would soon be tested in ways neither of them could have imagined. As they sat there, the storm pounding against the walls of Henry's home, a sense of foreboding lingered in the air. The journey ahead would be fraught with danger and uncertainty. But for now, they had each other. And sometimes that was enough to face the unknown. The morning after Zara's arrival dawned grey and cold, the remnants of the storm leaving a slick sheen on the streets and a crisp chill in the air. Henry awoke to the faint sounds of movement in the kitchen, his initial grogginess quickly giving way to the memory of the night before. For a moment, he considered the possibility that it had all been a bizarre dream, until he walked into the kitchen and saw Zara carefully examining a strange object on his table. The artifact was unlike anything Henry had ever seen. Roughly the size of a shoebox, it was made of a dark metallic material that seemed to pulse faintly with an inner light. Intricate symbols and patterns adorned its surface, shifting subtly as Zara's fingers traced along them. The artifact exuded an aura of ancient power, its presence filling the small room with a palpable sense of mystery. "Morning," Henry greeted, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. "I see you've made yourself at home." Zara looked up, offering a faint smile. "Good morning, Henry. I hope you don't mind. I thought it best to begin working on the artifact as soon as possible." Henry shrugged, pouring himself a cup of coffee. "Well, considering it's not every day I wake up to an alien deciphering an ancient relic in my kitchen, I guess it's fine." He took a sip of his coffee, eyeing the artifact wearily. "So, what exactly is this thing?" "It is a key," Zara explained, her gaze returning to the artifact. "A key to knowledge and power long forgotten. The symbols you see are a language, a code that must be deciphered to unlock its true potential." Henry raised an eyebrow. "A key, huh? And here I thought my biggest problem today would be getting the Wi-Fi to work." Zara chuckled softly, the sound a brief but welcome reprieve from the tension. "This key holds the potential to either save or destroy countless lives, depending on who wields it. That is why it is imperative we decipher it before it falls into the wrong hands." Henry set his coffee down, his curiosity piqued despite himself. "All right, so how do we go about unlocking this thing? I'm not exactly fluent in ancient alien languages." "Fortunately, neither am I," Zara admitted, her expression thoughtful. "However, the artifact responds to certain stimuli: touch, sound, even thoughts. Together, we may be able to find the right combination to unlock its secrets." Henry leaned against the counter, watching as Zara's fingers continued to dance over the artifact's surface. "So it's like a really high-stakes game of Simon Says?" Zara tilted her head, clearly unfamiliar with the reference. "In a way, yes, though the consequences of failure are far more severe." Henry nodded, the weight of her words settling over him. "All right, let's give it a shot. What do you need me to do?" Zara gestured for him to sit beside her. "Begin by placing your hand here," she instructed, indicating a small indentation on the artifact's surface. "Focus your thoughts on a single word, something meaningful to you." Henry hesitated for a moment before placing his hand on the artifact. He closed his eyes, his mind searching for the right word. After a moment, he settled on one: hope. The artifact grew warmer beneath his touch, the symbols shifting and glowing faintly in response. Zara observed the change with a mix of curiosity and satisfaction. "Good. Now listen closely." As Henry concentrated, a faint hum began to emanate from the artifact, a harmonious, almost musical sound that seemed to resonate within him. The symbols continued to shift, aligning themselves in patterns that defied logic, yet felt strangely familiar. "Keep focusing," Zara urged, her voice calm yet firm. "We're making progress." For what felt like hours, they worked together, their combined efforts slowly unravelling the artefact's mysteries. Henry found himself drawn into the process, his initial skepticism giving way to genuine fascination. Despite the strangeness of the situation, he couldn't deny the thrill of discovery. Finally, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, the artefact emitted a soft, pulsating glow, signalling their success. The symbols coalesced into a coherent pattern, revealing a hidden compartment that slid open with a soft click. Inside was a small crystalline sphere, its surface shimmering with an inner light. Zara's eyes widened with recognition and awe. "This is it," she whispered, "the core of the artefact. Its true power lies within." Henry leaned in, peering at the sphere with a mixture of wonder and apprehension. "So what now? Do we use it?" Zara shook her head, her expression somber. "Not yet. First we must understand its full potential and the risks involved. To wield this power without knowledge would be reckless." Henry nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. "All right, so we keep deciphering, keep learning. But for now, how about we take a break? My brain feels like it's been through a blender." Zara smiled, a genuine warmth in her eyes. "Agreed. Thank you, Henry. Your help means more than you know." As they shared a quiet moment of respite, the artifact's soft glow casting a gentle light over the room, Henry couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. They had taken a step closer to uncovering the truth, and though the road ahead was still uncertain, they faced it together. For the first time in a long while, Henry felt a spark of purpose, an adventure that had chosen him, whether he was ready for it or not. The quiet of the evening settled over Henry's small house, the hum of the artefact now a faint, distant memory. Despite the triumph of the day, an unshakable tension lingered in the air. Henry sat on the worn-out couch, absently flipping through channels on the television, while Zara remained at the kitchen table, her attention fixed on the crystalline sphere nestled within the artifact's core. The soft glow of the sphere illuminated her features, casting delicate shadows that danced across the walls. Henry stole a glance at her, still grappling with the surreal reality of his new housemate. He cleared his throat, breaking the silence. "So, Zara," he began, trying to keep the conversation light, "what's it like being from another galaxy? You know, aside from the whole being chased by dangerous factions thing?" Zara looked up, a faint smile gracing her lips. "It is complex," she admitted. "My world is one of beauty and advanced technology, yet it is also a place of political strife and conflict. The Talith are but one of many factions vying for control, each with their own vision for the future." Henry nodded, leaning back in his seat. "Sounds a lot like Earth, minus the advanced technology and glowing artifacts." "Perhaps the struggles of our peoples are not so different after all," Zara mused. "Despite the vast distances that separate us, the desires and fears of individuals remain remarkably similar." Henry chuckled, his tone laced with sarcasm. "Great. So intergalactic conflict is just as messy as the local stuff. Good to know." Before Zara could respond, a sudden noise outside caught their attention. It was faint at first, a subtle rustling in the bushes, but it quickly grew louder. A series of deliberate, methodical movements. Henry's casual demeanour vanished, replaced by a growing sense of unease. "Stay here," he whispered, rising from the couch and moving toward the window. He peered through the curtains, straining to see anything in the dim light. The street outside was eerily still, the only illumination coming from the faint glow of the streetlights. Zara stood as well, her expression tense. "What is it?" she asked, her voice low. "I'm not sure," Henry replied, his eyes scanning the darkness, "but I've got a bad feeling about this." As if on cue, the front door rattled, followed by a sharp, insistent knock. Henry's heart raced, his mind racing with possibilities. He turned to Zara, who nodded in silent understanding. Without a word, She moved to the artifact, her fingers deftly closing the compartment and concealing the crystalline sphere within. She then took up a position near the back door, her posture alert and ready. Henry took a deep breath, steeling himself before approaching the front door. He hesitated for a moment, his hand hovering over the doorknob, before finally pulling it open. Standing on the porch was a man clad in a long, dark coat. His features were obscured by the shadows, his eyes glinting with a cold, calculating intensity, and a thin smile played at his lips. "Good evening," the man greeted, his tone polite but devoid of warmth. "I apologize for the intrusion, but I'm looking for someone. Perhaps you've seen her?" Henry forced a casual smile, his mind racing. "Sorry, friend, just me here. Can't say I've seen anyone else." The man's smile widened, but there was no humour in it. "Is that so?" "You see, I have reason to believe she may have sought refuge here, a most unusual individual." Henry's grip on the door tightened. "Like I said, it's just me. Maybe you've got the wrong house." The man's gaze lingered on Henry for a moment longer, as if weighing the truth of his words. Then, with a slight nod, he stepped back. "Very well. But if you happen to see her, do let me know. It's imperative that we find her. For her own safety, of course." Henry watched as the man turned and disappeared into the night, his footsteps fading into the distance. He closed the door, letting out a shaky breath. Zara emerged from the shadows, her expression grim. "Who was that?" "I don't know," Henry admitted, running a hand through his hair. "But whoever he is, he's looking for you." Zara nodded, her jaw set in determination. "Then we must be prepared. They will not stop until they have what they seek." Henry sighed, the weight of the situation pressing down on him once more. "Looks like our quiet little operation just got a whole lot more complicated." As the night stretched on, the two of them sat together, planning their next move. The shadows outside seemed to grow darker, the threat looming ever closer. But despite the danger, Henry felt a newfound resolve. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The stakes were high, and the odds were stacked against them. But for the first time, Henry felt ready to rise to the challenge. After all, he had an alien ally by his side and an adventure unfolding right at his doorstep. The tension from the previous night lingered in the air as morning broke over Henry's small home. The encounter with the mysterious man had left both him and Zara on edge, their unease a constant undercurrent to their every action. Despite the clear skies outside, a storm of uncertainty brewed within the confines of the house. Henry sat at the kitchen table, absently stirring his coffee as he mulled over the events of the night. Zara was across from him, her attention divided between a data tablet she had retrieved from her belongings and the artifact that now sat dormant on the table between them. "We need a plan," Henry finally said, breaking the silence. "That guy last night, he's not going to give up easily. If he's part of this Talith faction you mentioned, then we're in for some serious trouble." Zara nodded, her expression serious. "I agree. We cannot stay here indefinitely. They will return, and when they do, they will bring more than just questions." Henry leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. "Great, so what do we do? Hit the road? Go into hiding?" Zara's gaze shifted to the artifact, her brow furrowing in thought. "We need to understand the artifact's true nature. Without that knowledge, we are at a severe disadvantage. But we also need allies, someone who can help us decipher its secrets and protect it." Henry frowned, considering their options. "Allies, huh? I don't exactly have a Rolodex full of alien-friendly contacts." "There is someone," Zara said slowly, her tone thoughtful. "A scientist named Dr. Elias Morgenstern. He is an expert in ancient technologies and has connections that may prove invaluable. If anyone can help us, it is him." Henry raised an eyebrow. "Doctor? Morgenstern? Sounds like a character from a bad spy movie. How do you know we can trust him?" "I have worked with him before," Zara explained. "He is eccentric, but his knowledge is unparalleled. He has dedicated his life to understanding the mysteries of the universe. If we can reach him, he may be our best chance." Henry sighed, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. "All right, so how do we find this doctor?" "Morgenstern?" Zara tapped a few commands into her data tablet, bringing up a map of the nearby region. "He resides in a secluded research facility several hours' drive from here. We will need to leave soon if we are to reach him before nightfall." Henry nodded, already feeling the weight of the journey ahead. "Guess we'd better pack our bags then." The drive was long and uneventful, the miles slipping by beneath the tires as the landscape shifted from urban sprawl to rural isolation. Henry kept his eyes on the road, the rhythmic hum of the engine a soothing backdrop to the tension that still lingered between them. Zara sat in the passenger seat, her gaze fixed on the horizon. Despite the calm exterior, Henry could sense the turmoil beneath the surface. He stole a glance at her, his curiosity getting the better of him. "So what's the deal with this Morgenstern guy?" he asked. "You said he's eccentric. Should I be worried?" Zara's lips quirked in a faint smile. "Doctor, Morgenstern is unique. His mind operates on a level few can comprehend. He sees the world in patterns and equations where others see chaos. It can make him difficult to understand, but his brilliance is unmatched." Henry chuckled, shaking his head. "Sounds like a real piece of work, but if he can help us, I'm willing to put up with a little eccentricity." As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape, they finally reached their destination. The research facility was a modest structure nestled within a grove of trees and surrounded by an air of quiet seclusion. Henry parked the car and stepped out, stretching his legs as he surveyed the area. Zara joined him, her gaze sharp and alert. Together they approached the entrance, the crunch of gravel beneath their feet, the only sound in the stillness. The door opened before they could knock, revealing a tall, wiry man with wild hair and a pair of thick glasses perched on his nose. His eyes lit up with recognition as he spotted Zara, a broad grin spreading across his face. "Zara, my dear, it's been far too long," he exclaimed, pulling her into an enthusiastic embrace. Zara returned the gesture with a small smile. "It is good to see you, Elias. We have much to discuss." Dr. Morgenstern's gaze shifted to Henry, his expression curious. "And who is this?" "A friend of yours?" Henry offered a hesitant smile, extending a hand. "Henry, nice to meet you." Morgenstern shook his hand vigorously, his grip surprisingly strong. "A pleasure, Henry. Any friend of Zara is a friend of mine." As they stepped inside, Henry couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. For the first time since Zara's arrival, they were no longer alone. With Dr. Morgenstern's help, they might just stand a chance against the unseen forces closing in around them. But even as they settled into the facility, a nagging sense of unease lingered. The shadows of the night were long, and the enemies they faced were closer than ever. The dim, cluttered interior of Dr. Morgenstern's research facility was a stark contrast to the serene isolation of its exterior. Bookshelves crammed with ancient tomes and scientific journals lined the walls, while various pieces of alien technology and peculiar artifacts were scattered across workbenches. The air buzzed with a faint hum, the room alive with an energy that was almost tangible. Henry followed Zara and Dr. Morgenstern through the labyrinth of clutter, his eyes darting from one strange object to another. He felt like he had stepped into a mad scientist's lair. Everywhere he looked, there was something fascinating or bewildering. "Make yourselves comfortable," Morgenstern said, waving a hand toward a pair of chairs. "I'll put on some tea. We've got much to discuss, and I have a feeling it's going to be a long night." Henry exchanged a glance with Zara before sinking into one of the chairs. Zara, ever composed, remained standing, her gaze fixed on Morgenstern as he bustled about retrieving a teapot from an improbably cluttered shelf. "So, Zara," Morgenstern began, his tone light but curious, "what brings you to my humble abode after all these years? And who exactly is this charming young man you've brought along?" "This is Henry," Zara introduced, her tone measured. "He has been aiding me since my arrival on Earth. We are here because of an artifact, one of immense power and significance." Morgenstern's eyes lit up with interest. "An artifact, you say? How intriguing. Let me see it at once." Zara produced the artifact from her bag, placing it carefully on the cluttered table. Morgenstern leaned in, his fingers hovering just above its surface as he examined it with a mix of awe and reverence. "Incredible," he murmured. This is ancient, far older than anything I've encountered before. Where did you find it?" "It was entrusted to me by my people," Zara explained. "It is said to be a key, a source of knowledge and power that could change the course of history. But we are not the only ones seeking it. The Talith are after it as well." Morgenstern's expression darkened at the mention of the Talith. "Ah, yes, a most unpleasant group. Their motives are always shrouded in secrecy and self-interest. If they're after this artifact, it can only mean trouble." Henry leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. "So, can you help us figure out what this thing does? We've been able to unlock part of it, but there's still a lot we don't understand." Morgenstern nodded, his enthusiasm returning. "Indeed I can, but this will require time, patience, and a fair bit of tea." He retrieved a magnifying glass from his pocket, peering closely at the intricate symbols etched into the artifact's surface. These markings, they're not just a language, they're a form of multi-dimensional code. To decipher them, we must think beyond the constraints of our usual perception. Henry frowned, struggling to keep up. "Multi-dimensional code? You're going to have to dumb that down for me, Doc." Morgenstern chuckled, his eyes twinkling behind his glasses. "Imagine, if you will, a painting. To the average observer, it appears as a flat image, but to one who understands its depths, it reveals layers of meaning, hidden dimensions that cannot be seen at first glance. This artifact operates on a similar principle, but on a far grander scale." Zara's expression remained serious. "Then we must decipher it as quickly as possible. Time is not on our side." Morgenstern nodded, his demeanour sobering. "Agreed, but to unlock its full potential, we must delve into its patterns, its rhythms. It is a puzzle that requires not only intellect, but intuition." As the night wore on, the three of them worked tirelessly, each bringing their unique strengths to the task. Morgenstern's scientific expertise, Zara's innate understanding of her people's history, and Henry's unexpected knack for lateral thinking. The synergy propelled their efforts forward. Hours passed in a blur, the room filled with the quiet hum of concentration and the occasional clink of teacups. Despite the complexity of the task, there was a sense of progress, a feeling that they were inching closer to the heart of the artifact's mysteries. Finally, as dawn began to break, casting a pale light through the windows, the artifact emitted a soft, harmonious tone. The crystalline sphere at its core pulsed with a radiant glow, filling the room with a sense of calm and clarity. Morgenstern leaned back, a triumphant smile on his face. "We've done it," he announced. "The artifact's core has been fully activated. Now we can begin to unlock its secrets." Henry let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "So what now? What does this thing actually do?" Morgenstern's expression grew serious. "That, my dear Henry, is a question we must answer carefully. The artifact holds the potential to reshape reality itself. to bend the very fabric of the universe. But with such power comes great responsibility. Zara's gaze was steady, her resolve unwavering. Then we must ensure it is used wisely. We cannot allow it to fall. Into the wrong hands, Henry nodded, the weight of their task settling over him once more. Looks like we've got our work cut out for us. As they prepared for the challenges ahead, the sun rose higher, casting its light over a world on the brink of change. The forces that sought to control the artifact were still out there, lurking in the shadows. But for now, they had taken a crucial step forward. Together, they would face whatever came next, armed with knowledge, determination, and the unshakable belief that they were fighting for something greater than themselves. The days following the artifact's full activation were a blur of preparation and anticipation. Dr. Morgenstern, Zara, and Henry worked tirelessly to decipher its newfound capabilities, each revelation adding another layer of complexity to their already perilous situation. The artifact's potential to reshape reality was both awe-inspiring and terrifying, a power that could either save or destroy, depending on who wielded it. As they delved deeper into the artifact's mysteries, a sense of urgency gripped them. The Talith were closing in, their relentless pursuit of the artifact driving them ever closer. Time was running out, and the stakes had never been higher. The morning of the final confrontation dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the storm brewing within their hearts. The research facility had become a fortress of sorts, its walls lined with defences, both physical and technological. Morgenstern's eccentricity had proven invaluable, his ingenious traps and deterrents turning the secluded building into a veritable stronghold. Zara stood at the heart of the facility, the artifact cradled in her hands. Its glow was steady now, a beacon of hope in the face of impending danger. She looked to Henry, her gaze filled with a mix of determination and gratitude. "Henry," she said softly, "I never expected to find an ally in such an unexpected place. Your courage and kindness have been a beacon for me. No matter what happens today, I want you to know that you have my deepest gratitude." Henry shifted awkwardly, his usual humour giving way to a rare moment of sincerity. "Hey, don't get all sappy on me now. We've still got a fight ahead of us. Let's just make sure we both get through this, all right?" Zara nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. "Agreed." The sound of approaching vehicles shattered the quiet, signalling the arrival of the Talith. The ground trembled beneath their feet as the enemy drew near, their intentions clear and uncompromising. Morgenstern appeared at their side, his expression a mix of excitement and apprehension. "They're here," he announced. "Remember, the key to this battle lies not in brute strength, but in the artifact itself. Use its power wisely, and we may yet emerge victorious." The three of them moved to the facility's control room, where they could monitor the approaching threat. The Talith forces were numerous, their ranks filled with soldiers and advanced weaponry. It was a daunting sight, but Henry refused to let fear take hold. "All right," he muttered, clenching his fists. "Let's do this." The battle began with a deafening roar, the Talith launching a full-scale assault on the facility. Morgenstern's defences held firm, buying them precious time as Zara focused on the artifact. Her hands moved with practiced precision, manipulating its energies with a grace and confidence born of necessity. As the artifact's power surged, a protective barrier formed around the facility, its shimmering surface deflecting enemy attacks. The Talith pressed on, their determination unwavering. But the artifact's energy was a force they had not anticipated. Amid the chaos, Henry found himself face to face with the mysterious man from the night of the knock. His cold, calculating gaze was filled with a dangerous resolve, and Henry knew this was the moment of reckoning. "Give us the artifact," the man demanded, his voice a chilling whisper. "You cannot comprehend the power you hold." Henry squared his shoulders, his heart pounding in his chest. "You're right, I can't. But I do know one thing. We're not handing it over to you." The man's expression hardened, and he lunged forward, a blade glinting in his hand. Henry dodged the attack, years of self-defense training kicking in as he fought to keep the man at bay. Zara's voice cut through the din, her words filled with urgency. "Henry, hold him off. I'm almost there." With a final desperate effort, Henry managed to disarm the man, sending the blade clattering to the floor. He delivered a swift punch, knocking the man unconscious. Breathing heavily, he turned to see Zara standing at the center of the room, the artifact glowing brighter than ever. "It's done," she announced, her voice steady. "The artifact's power has been fully unleashed. This Talith will not prevail." Outside, the battle raged on, but the tide had turned. The artifact's energy surged outward, enveloping the Talith forces and rendering their weapons useless. The soldiers faltered, their resolve breaking in the face of an enemy they could not defeat. Within moments, the Talith began to retreat, their forces scattering into the wilderness. The threat had been neutralized, and the facility stood victorious. As the dust settled, Henry and Zara stood together, the artifact's glow fading as it returned to dormancy. Morgenstern joined them, his face a mixture of relief and triumph. "We did it," he said, his voice filled with awe. "The artifact is safe, and the Talith have been defeated. For now?" Zara nodded, her expression solemn. "But this is not the end. The artifact's power is too great to be left unguarded. We must find a place where it can be protected, where it can do no harm." Henry placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll figure it out together." With the immediate threat behind them, the three of them set out on the next leg of their journey, determined to safeguard the artifact and ensure its power was used for good. Their paths had converged in the face of adversity, forging bonds that would endure beyond the challenges they had faced. As they disappeared into the horizon, the world stood on the brink of a new dawn, one shaped by the choices they had made and the courage they had shown. The future remained uncertain, but one thing was clear: their story was far from over.